passion fruit marshmallow, toasted marshmallow, peanut butter dolce de leche, pretzel and peanut praline, Mars bar brownie, donut ice cream, bacon, potato chips, raspberry curd, and deep fried Nutella. You know, stoner's delight.
I feel like I got fatter just listening to you describe that.
Dan Hong has helped change the way this city eats out. He is the executive chef of Mr. Wong's and Miss G's. He's reinvented Asian flavours with his own very special spin, and now he's putting the home cooks of Australia to the test as one of the hosts of the brand new SBS series The Chef's Line. But before the awards and the TV shows, it all starts with a great sandwich, his mum, and a big old bag of weed.
Food is my life. I always grew up around food. I grew up around restaurants. My mum was one of the first Vietnamese interpreters in Sydney. And my dad was an electrical engineer.
So at some point, your mum ends up running restaurants.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? Because I understand it wasn't necessarily her call to begin with.
No. So basically, my dad just called my mum and went, look, I bought a restaurant. And my mum's like, what? Right, so they kept, obviously as owners, they kept going there and eating there. And my mum was just really not satisfied with the quality, the standard of the food. So she actually got into the kitchen herself and changed everything and sort of made Vietnamese food her style. Using better produce, using fresher herbs.
And so when you would take lunches to school, what sort of stuff, like, because there's always this thing when you talk to people whose parents work in food, like the sort of stuff they end up taking to lunch is very different to what all the other kids would have had.
Yes.
What was your experience of that?
Well, my mum would still pack sandwiches, but they would be like banh mi's.
Yeah, right.
And you know, have you had the siu mai sandwich, which is like the one with the meatballs?
Yeah.
She'd pack that for me and it would stink my whole bag, right, you know. As soon as I'd open my bag, all my friends would be like, that stinks, what's that? I was so embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
You know, and like, you know, there'd be days that I'd come home and go, Mum, can't I just have a ham sandwich or something like everyone else?
So if I was going to order anything, what should I order?
Number one, bro.
Number one? What do you reckon is the most misunderstood ingredient?
MSG.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? What would it?
Because there's still this bad cloud around it that is bad for you. It adds that savouriness to all the dishes. That's why Chinese food tastes so good. That's why Asian food tastes so good. Basically, look, I wasn't doing that great in high school.
Yeah.
My parents sent me to a private school. They were basically, to be honest, they were wasting their money.
Yeah.
And I got, what did I get? I got like 48 in my HSC, which is
not great.
School isn't great.
No.
And my mum's like, look, what are you going to do? Because like, I'm not going to give you pocket money anymore. You got to get a job. What do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, I can't get into uni. And she's like, well, why don't you become a chef? You always cook at home. Why don't you do that? And I just thought, okay, I'll just give it a go then. My mum was always at the restaurant. My dad couldn't cook at all. I was always like getting left to my own devices, you know, using whatever was in the fridge and cooking stuff. And I thought I'd give it a go. My mum got me my first job as a first-year apprentice, and then it went from there. My passion for cooking developed when I started cooking. Being in a fine dining kitchen is like being in an army. It's a high-pressure environment. I won the Josephine Pignolet Award for Best Young Chef. That gave me the opportunity to travel and work overseas. I worked in New York for 2 months, came back, didn't know what I was going to do. Literally the second day I was back, I got a call. Lotus is looking for a head chef. You know, he was wondering if you want to catch up for lunch. Maybe we could talk about you possibly doing a tasting.
When you have to do the tasting, which is sort of like an audition, how does that work?
I literally did 12 dishes in about 45 minutes.
Jesus Christ. Do you, when you're working at that speed in a kind of a pressured environment, are you like 100% present, or do you have like little out-of-body moments where you're like, oh, what the fuck am I doing?
You've got to go so fast. Because as soon as he comes in, he's like, go. And you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
But, I had about an hour to prepare, so the guy who was working with me knew what he had to do, and I knew what I had to do. So I was like, cook that piece of fish. All right, start cooking that, start doing that. While you're doing that, I'm going to start plating this.
Once you've delivered and they're all out, and how does that conversation go?
Well, it can go one way. You can walk into the room and they can go, nothing, or you can walk into the room and everyone would be clapping at the table.
So if there's anything not clapping, is like,
Yeah, basically, yeah. Yeah, luckily I walked into the room and everyone was clapping. Yeah, there was clapping. Yeah.
So how does it feel to be given your first head chef gig? What does that mean to a guy like you?
Look, it's daunting. It is. I mean, because you've got to prove yourself. Whenever someone gets their first head chef gig, it's their chance to really prove themselves, really show people what they can do. And in a sense there, it's almost like a curse as well, because you almost try too hard. And when I became the head chef of Lotus, I didn't really have an identity.
Yeah.
I was just doing stuff that I learned from past, places that I learned certain techniques. So I didn't really develop my own style until Ms. G's opened.
There's a sort of perception that chefs in high pressure scenarios are angry people. They yell and things like that.
Yeah, no, it's true.
It is true, right?
Of course it's true. I mean, I was an asshole when I was a sous chef. I mean, that.
It's nice to hear somebody admit.
Hey, no, look, that's what sous chefs do. They're there to be the enforcer.
Yeah.
In the kitchen, you know, you can't let your head chef down.
Yeah.
Especially when you get this position for the first time. And I was a dickhead, because that was the way I was treated by my sous chefs.
How does having been that and having been treated that way, how does that change you as a boss?
Look, I only realised about 4 years ago that I couldn't treat my staff like that anymore.
So what happened?
What happened is that people kept leaving.
Yep.
Chefs can work wherever they want now. They know that there's a shortage of chefs.
Why is there a shortage of chefs?
A 55-hour week as an apprentice, when you're earning $40,000 a year, isn't great.
If you search up the geotag for your restaurant, Stoner's Delight is still one of the most Instagram things you can find in relation
it's ridiculous, man. I mean, to be honest, in high school, the reason why I didn't do very well is because I smoked weed every day.
Right.
Like, that was sort of my inspiration behind the dessert. We used to go to Coles, after a session, we used to go to Coles and just buy cream and just toffee apples. We just buy the worst food and just go back and just go, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And I actually finally confessed that to my mum, like last year. Because my mum was like, you want some hash cookies? I'm like, what?
What?
She's like, I got it off my friend. I was like, what the hell? Do I know you? She was like, what? Do you want? I was like, I know what they do. I don't want them. And she's like, why? I was like, because I used to smoke weed like every day in high school.
You're right.
And she's like, what?
And she had no idea.
She was like, oh my God. She was like worried and stuff. I was like, Mum, I'm like 35 now, relax. Look, I think what makes a difference between a good chef and a great chef is really creating your own identity, creating your own style. And that's the only way you can really be noticed.
Dan, thanks so much for talking.
Thanks, mate.